Today's mindful moment.
Ever think you could solve a real-life murder just by reading a good mystery novel?
Interesting.
Well, that's what we're diving into today. It's Anthony Horowitz's The Marble Hall Murders.
Oh, that's a good one.
It's a story that really makes you question where fiction ends and reality begins, and how even a made-up detective could help uncover the truth.
You know what's so cool about this book? It's how Horowitz uses this concept of metafiction.
Okay, now for those of us who don't spend all day thinking about literary theory,
Sure.
what does that even mean? Like, how does metafiction actually work in the story?
Okay, so picture this. You're reading a novel,
Right.
And as you're turning the pages, you start to realize the clues in the fictional world, they're actually pointing to a real crime happening in the present day.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's metafiction. Like, he's holding up a mirror to how we tell stories and what we choose to believe.
So it's like a story within a story.
Exactly. You've got Susan Ryeland. She's our main character in the present day, an editor who gets caught up in this suspicious death and is trying to desperately clear her name. And then interwoven into her narrative is the manuscript she's editing. A 1955 case featuring a fictional detective named Atticus Pünd. He's trying to solve this poisoning case.
So we've got two mysteries going on at the same time.
Yeah. At first, they seem totally separate. But as you go deeper, they start to mirror each other.
It's like one of those Russian nesting dolls. Each one reveals another layer.
That's a great way to put it.
This parallel between the real mystery and the one in the manuscript, it's so clever.
It really makes you wonder, could reading fiction actually help you be more observant in real life?
Maybe we should all be reading more detective novels.
Right.
Train our brains to pick up on those subtle clues.
There's definitely something to be said for that. Honing those observation skills, deduction, just like a detective would. But I think what Horowitz is really getting at is much bigger than that. He's exploring how we create narratives. How much do the stories we tell ourselves shape how we see the world? The ones we read, the ones we hear.
That's so true. It's like how much of what we believe is just based on the stories we've been told.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got this puzzle of interconnected mysteries. Let's talk about the characters. We've got Susan Ryeland, our protagonist.
Yeah.
She seems so relatable.
Right.
And super sharp, the kind of person you want on your side when things get rough.
Absolutely. Susan's our guide through this maze of fiction and reality. Resourceful, smart, and just as surprised as we are by all the crazy twists.
Right.
And then you have Eliot Crace. He wrote the manuscript that Susan's editing.
Okay.
And he is absolutely convinced that his grandmother, Miriam Crace, was murdered years ago.
Oh, wow.
She was this beloved children's author.
Interesting.
And he believes that the poisoning case in his book actually mirrors her death.
Oh, man. Family drama on top of everything else.
Yeah, Eliot is driven by this grief and this desire for justice. But you do wonder if his obsession with finding the truth might be clouding his judgment a little.
It's hard to be objective when you're that close to something.
Right. And then there's Miriam Crace herself, famous children's author.
Yeah.
But behind that public image is this whole web of family secrets, complicated relationships.
It makes you think about all those public figures we put on pedestals, right? Do we ever really know the whole story?
That tension between the public face and what's really going on behind the scenes, that's a huge theme in the book.
So it's about more than just solving a crime.
Yeah, it's about legacy, about the image we leave behind, and how sometimes the truth can be much darker than what we see on the surface.
Like looking at one of those portraits with hidden images. The more you look, the more you see.
Exactly. There's always more to the story than meets the eye. It's kind of like those true crime documentaries where they open up some old box and find all these letters and diaries.
All right.
And it suddenly changes how we see the past. But here, the clues are hidden in a fictional story.
That's what makes this book so fascinating. Truth can be found in the most unexpected places. Speaking of unexpected, what about the setting? Marble Hall, this grand estate, it almost feels like a character itself.
It totally does. Marble Hall, all that history, all those secrets. It represents the family's legacy in a way.
Yeah, the grandeur and the darkness hidden underneath. And the family inside, their relationships are so messed up.
Right.
I mean, Miriam Crace may have been this beloved author, but things with her children and grandchildren were definitely not picture perfect.
All that dysfunction adds a whole other layer to the mystery, doesn't it? Makes you think about legacy, expectations, the weight of family secrets.
It's like she was living a double life almost, this happy, creative persona to the public, while inside there's all this turmoil and complex family stuff. Do you think her stories, the ones she wrote for kids, Do you think those could hold clues to her own struggles?
That's a really interesting thought. Think about it. Writers often draw from their own lives, even if you don't realize it. It's possible that even those children's stories, with the talking animals and adventures, they might have these hidden meanings, things that only someone who knew her really well would pick up on.
It's like those hidden messages we were talking about earlier. Deeper meanings beneath the surface.
There are even YouTube channels dedicated to analyzing audiobooks using AI to uncover these hidden themes and patterns. I wonder what a channel like Mindful Moments could find in a book like The Marble Hall Murders, with all its layers and connections.
That's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it. Okay, but back to the murder mystery itself. We've got Eliot, so convinced his grandmother was murdered. But he's not the only one with secrets, right? All these characters at Marble Hall, they all have their own motives, potential links to the crime.
Horowitz is so good at keeping us guessing. He gives us all these relationships, conflicting stories, red herrings. Every time you think you've figured it out, bam, he throws in a new twist.
It's like a hall of mirrors. You're never really sure which reflection is the true one. I'll admit, the ending totally got me. Did not see that coming.
That's the mark of a great mystery writer, that ability to surprise you. But then when it's revealed, it all makes sense. It's satisfying. But even with the case solved, the book stays with you.
Yeah.
Makes you think, what is justice, really? How far would you go to find the truth? Especially when it involves digging up the past and maybe hurting people you care about.
Those are tough questions, ones that really make you examine your own beliefs. What would you do if you were Susan, forced to choose between revealing a painful truth or protecting someone you love?
Yeah, it's like that saying, right? The truth will set you free. But sometimes it can really hurt in the process. And in a way, aren't we all kind of detectives in our own lives?
That's a good point.
Trying to figure things out, make sense of the world.
We're always piecing together clues.
And sometimes the stories we tell ourselves, those can be just as powerful and maybe just as misleading as anything we read in a book. Exactly. What makes the Marble Hall Murders so interesting is it's not just a whodunit. It makes you think about truth and how powerful stories can be. It makes you question everything.
So what's the takeaway here for our listeners? Why should they care about this whole fiction versus reality thing?
I think it's a good reminder that even the most made-up stories can have grains of truth hidden inside. And the lines between what's real and what's imagined, well, they can be pretty blurry sometimes.
It makes you really pay attention to the stories you hear and read, and even the ones you tell yourself.
Right, like being more aware of how you see the world.
Any final thoughts you want to leave us with?
Yeah, I would say approach every story you encounter, whether it's a book, a movie, or even the news, with a bit of skepticism and curiosity.
Okay.
Ask yourself, who's telling this story? What's their angle? How might that be shaping what I'm hearing or reading?
That's good advice.
By thinking critically, we become better readers, better listeners, and more informed people overall.
Well said. I know I'll never look at a mystery novel the same way again. This deep dive has been so eye-opening. It makes you realize just how much stories can impact us. So just to recap, we've been exploring Anthony Horowitz's The Marble Hall Murders, a mystery that really plays with our ideas of truth and justice, blurring the lines between what's real and what's made up. If you're into mind-bending stories and thought-provoking discussions, we highly recommend checking out the book. We'll put a link in the show notes where you can find it. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to The Deep Dive for more fascinating topics and insightful conversations. Share this one with your friends, especially those who love a good mystery or a good brain teaser. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep those pages turning.